Welcome back, guys. As always, Hot Mess Espresso is proudly sponsored by 502 Media. We don't talk about anger enough as a whole, as a society. It's very much a negative emotion. We just try to bury it, ignore it. Our guest is here to literally shift your entire mindset on what anger is and how to better handle it. Davina, welcome in.
Hi, thank you. Yay.
Hi. Okay, so let's just dive into your journey because obviously like you got into anger and everything else, and that's really like your niche when it comes to mental health. But walk me through your journey from, point A to where you were like, anger is what I want to focus on.
Yeah. So a lot of the time people go into mental health, psychology, thinking
Hmm.
that we understand ourselves so well that now we just want to understand others, when in
Hmm.
reality, we typically kind of like deflect that energy elsewhere. And I was no different. So
Right.
I grew up intellectualizing what I was experiencing, knowing all the reasons why I was the way that I was, but not fully like embodying it.
Hmm.
So I got my master's in forensic and counseling psychology, realized I was really disenchanted with the entire therapeutic model of diagnosis and symptom management, and really wanted to be more on the prevention side. So,
Hmm.
post grad school, 6 figures of debt, still not really knowing what I wanted to do, feeling like a complete and utter failure for not getting
Right.
licensed. I started taking inventory around me of like, where would it make the most sense for me to put my time?
Hmm.
And of course, as many therapists do, we make projects out of the people we love. And at the time, my husband and I were in really tremendous amounts of conflict and just not managing it very well.
Hmm.
He was Hulk smashing through walls and was refusing to go to anger management. And so I decided to get certified in it and try
Hmm.
to infiltrate from within. So it was already kind of within there before we must have been married by then, but regardless, it was fully driven by trying to fix this man that I had perceived as being the problem in our relationship.
Right.
And then I very quickly, during my certification on day one, learned how big of a problem I was in our relationship and how I was contributing in really shitty ways to it. And so that became very much my home within the anger world.
Right. So before, everyone hops on to the whole, your husband was Hulk smashing through walls, girl, why are you still married to him?
Mhm.
Let's kind of dive into that a little bit so we can ease a couple of minds that are probably like, I'm sorry, what?
Well, yes. So, and there was a very strong distinction. I never feared for my own safety. It
Right.
was never directed at me. His aggression was never scary for me. It was him punching holes in walls, punching holes in doors, throwing things, breaking things, right? So, while of course that is a massive red flag, and it
Yeah.
can definitely be a preview of things escalating over time, there was
Right.
that very strong distinction that I never once feared for my safety. I never once was called outside of my name. It was not abusive. It was him suffering within himself and not knowing how to tolerate really big emotions. And that's where
Right.
I had been in an assaultive, abusive relationship prior to him, and there was very clear distinction between
Right.
that previous person who would take out his anger on me by
Hmm.
being incredibly unkind and gross, versus my husband, who you could see that he just didn't know how to hold it in the
Hmm.
container that is his like 6'4", 250 body. So there's that part. And when I was in the certification and I learned the ways that I more of an internal expressor of anger, where I would emotionally punish and emotionally shame him, there were also these moments of this anxious attachment that when he said he needed time and he needed to go walk it off, I would literally barricade the door. I wouldn't let him leave. And so there are these parts where we both contribute.
Right. No, 100%. Because I was going to say that's also a red flag.
100. I was toxic as fuck. We were
Oh, we've
both
all been there.
so
We
bad. It
have
was
all
bad.
been there. I
Yes.
look back at my 20s and I'm like, oh, geez.
I don't know
Like,
her.
Yeah, that wasn't me, that was Patricia. Like,
Hmm.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
So w there's 5 archetypes of anger, and you started podcasting. Your podcast is called Shift Talking, which, again, I love a good pun on.
Cheeky.
I know, I love it. It's great. What made you decide to go from, I've been looking into this, like, working on both mine and my husband's anger issues, let's put a mic on it and have fun with it?
Well, so I started out court ordered anger management. And then that
Mm,
kind of went into, hey, my wife has me on the tail end of an ultimatum. Husbands, can you help me? Hey, my job is threatening to remove me from employment. Can you help me? And so it very much evolved over time. And ultimately, I started working with parents and marriages, which makes, of course, the most amount of sense. So
yeah.
that was that part. The other part that I've noticed over the last 7 years that I've been in practice is that when we start this work, there's so much stigma and criminalization behind addressing anger. There's so
Yep.
much blame and shame behind it
Mhm.
that, one, we wait until we are on the tail end of an ultimatum or we lose everything afterward. Or there's just so much intrinsic shame and grossness that it's something that we shy away from, we avoid, and even then don't really know where to start. Because if
Yep.
everything is pissing me off, I'm going to be expected to change everything about myself.
Right.
So the archetypes are a newer brainchild of mine in trying to de-villainize anger, which is, I'm convinced, is my life's purpose, and find new ways for us to acknowledge it and accept it and actually welcome it in and listen to it in
Mhm.
ways that aren't so clinical, that aren't so problematic, that help us to distinguish different kinds of anger that build within us and what our approach is to kind of fighting up against these threats that our brain perceives.
Right. Just a kind of off the record, but on the record question. Do you enjoy working with married couples or families more?
Oh my gosh, I love both. So they tend to like work together.
Right.
I love couples. As much as I love working with individuals, there is only so much that one person can do
Yeah.
when their home life is so rough.
Yeah.
And the other person likely has so much work to do, just like I learned about myself. So I
Mhm.
do love couples. I specifically love couples who are also parenting.
Yeah.
I help through high conflict separations as well because we need to fight clean. And so
Yeah.
a lot of this has been realizing that when my husband and I became parents, what we thought was overwhelm and what I thought was challenge was so much worse and bigger. And me having been someone who hadn't really ever experienced the really deep desire to like break something, punch something, throw something,
Mhm.
parenting brought out this like visceral rage in my chest that I never knew was possible. And that's when I realized how much of my patterning was just this wiring that I did on autopilot,
Mhm.
and how quickly we can become parents who are unwilling to repeat what we got, but somehow unintentionally do anyway. And
Right.
even if it's not the same, it still rhymes. So
Mhm.
working with parents is really something that brings me a lot of joy and fulfillment because I know I'm having and I'm taking part in raising generations of kids that are hopefully less wounded than we
Right.
are.
Yeah, parenting's not for the weak.
It's fucking gnarly. It's a bait and
It is.
switch.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is. You get, like, especially if you have more than one, you get,
Mhm.
like, that what do they call the oldest? The trick baby, because 'cause I'm the oldest. So,
Mm.
like, I was the perfect baby, and my parents were like, "Pfft, this is cake," and then my sister came along and went, "That manual, I lit it on fire."
Yeah, no, it really is. I have heard that it's like God or the universe's way of tricking you into having a
Yep.
second. It's yeah, it's a gnarly experience
Yeah,
for
and then
sure.
if you have 3, it's a 50-50 shot of what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I stopped at 2. We were
Yeah,
like, I really would love a girl, and I don't love parenting at that point enough. I didn't feel like I was capable enough
you're
to
right.
raise 3 boys. So it's just like
No.
that's where we're good.
I'm a boy aunt, and yeah,
Mm.
the amount of times you spend more time trying to keep them from offing themselves than you do actually like parenting. And then on top of that, I swear to God, they just come out wanting to work on their audition reel for Jackass.
Oh, 100%.
And you're like, can you not?
I know. And I'm all about natural consequences. One of my best girlfriends calls me a free range parent because I'm just
I
like,
love
all
it.
right, you want to climb that railing? All right, like measured risk, natural consequences. There are certain things, of course, that are like a fuck no. Like you're
Right.
never
You're
going to do
not like,
that.
okay, you're not going to climb and, break your arm and then we're just going to go, oh, natural consequences. Like if I know you're going to break something if you fall, we're not doing that. If you're going to
Totally.
fall and it's going to hurt and it's going to suck for a little bit, I told you. Told you not
Yeah.
to do it.
I mean,
I
you'll learn
explained
by
why.
doing. And I learn really hard. I don't learn
Same.
from other people's experiences.
Mhm.
I have to experience the depths, the pain, all of
Mhm.
that myself. And I learned that quite quickly, that I learn hard, and
Yeah.
so do my sons, for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely carved my own how-to manual on what not to do for a very long time.
Yes. Different
You know.
versions, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, we all have our own, custom manual of what not to do.
Totally.
And then we just have the younger siblings that are taking notes and going, nope. It's like, okay.
Well, I'm the
You're
baby.
welcome. Oh boy.
Yeah. I'm the baby of 4 in 5 years. So I was like, yeah, I got to experiment a lot.
Your parents, oh my God. I'm
I
sorry.
know. Pumped them out.
4 kids in 5 years?
Yeah. My eldest brother was 5 years older than me.
Oh my God.
And no multiple births. Like they
Your
just.
poor mother.
I know. It's like, you were pregnant for 3 out of 5 years. She said as soon as she finished breastfeeding, she was pregnant, like right after again.
Yeah, no, you hit 2 and you were
Gnarly.
like, I couldn't do this 2 times. Nope.
No, it's not. I do have this anecdotal theory that some of us are wired, like born to be parents, and some of us are born to be
Yes.
partners. And I am most definitely born to be a partner.
Yeah, same. I love being an aunt. I adore it. It is my favorite thing in the world. But the full-time part of it, no. Absolutely not.
Yeah, no,
Sign
it's
me
rough.
out.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And I'm 34 and I've gotten to this point where I'm like, maybe like with the right person, people are starting in their 30s now. It's not as weird
Totally.
anymore. But then I'm just like, no, I got my tubes tied at 26 for a reason. Like I'm good. I'm finally getting my shit together enough. Why would I want to throw a whole human into it? Like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I didn't really think that far. We didn't we didn't plan it. And just to clarify a little bit, that we can be both. Like I am both a great
1000%.
partner and a great parent.
Yeah.
The great parenting part just feels harder to
Mhm.
me. Feels less natural to me. I wasn't the person who delivered my son and felt like everything made sense.
Right.
I delivered my son and was like, who the fuck is this? And I looked at the nurse and was like, I just take him home.
Yeah, that would have been
like
me.
that's it. Like I needed a home visit to get a ferret, and like you're gonna let me like just bring a whole human into this world and then just like leave me to my own devices? Like I wasn't. What are we doing?
Yeah, can we just like touch on that for a second? Because like my ex-husband and I, before we got our dog off a Facebook page, went through like dog shelters and stuff. And I mean, the amount of things you need for a fucking dog.
Totally.
And people are just able to pop out. I'm like, because I know several people that should have never been parents.
Mm-hmm.
But then I know some people that they have 5 kids and I'm like, I'm in awe of you. Like you just make this look like it's doable.
Totally. And those are the people who are born to be parents.
1000%.
And that's the hardest part. And I'm convinced anecdotally that so much of my postpartum depression that came after was seeing such a big divide between what I was told parenting would be, what I was told I would feel as a parent, and the reality of feeling numb to everything and nothing coming naturally. and like not liking breastfeeding and not being good at it, and
Yeah.
having just so much pressure that didn't align with my reality. And it created so much self-judgment and shame and fear about me and what that means, about the conflict that my husband and I were in constantly, the lack of sleep, all of that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that it was just like, your hormones are fucked up. I think it was like the bait and
Everything
switch that
is.
is parenting is what's fucked
Yeah.
up.
That's the thing. Everyone is like, "Oh, you're gonna have a baby. It's magical. You're gonna love it." Blah blah blah. And then you actually have the kid, and they're like, "Oh well, my kid only did this, and my kid only did that." And what do you mean you? And it's like, whoa, where did we go from it's magical to now you're doing everything wrong,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what you're doing?
Yes. And that was it. Like everyone, you get pregnant, everyone's like, oh my gosh, congratulations. It's the
Yeah,
greatest thing you'll ever do. And then baby's born. It's like, welcome to the fucking Thunderdome. Like
yeah, literally.
things will never be the same. And then they share all of this shit.
Yeah,
And so for me, like with some of my friends that have had kids after me, there's a lot of that of like, hey, I'm going to call you when I want to know the scariest parts and what really
yep.
to expect when these things come through.
Mm-hmm.
And the horror show that is childbirth that people like in the hospital about to give birth. Oh, and look at the baby. No, my God, it's a crime scene.
No,
It's awful.
everyone I know has had a traumatic birth. I can't think of a single person that was just like, it went every way I could think of. It was great. I want to do this again. No, I know so many people that were like, I want more kids, but like if I have to do this version of labor and delivery again, absolutely not.
Yeah. And back to that firstborn tricks you. My
Mm-hmm.
first one was so smooth. So smooth. And then my second one was an emergency C-section and oxygen deprived, traumatic as fuck. Like it was just horrific.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there isn't enough preparation. And what I really respect about your choice is that you've considered it. My husband and I got married, and I had a month gap between that time and me getting my refill of my NuvaRing for birth control. And we said, let's see. And then I just didn't get a period and we were pregnant. I was pregnant.
You were like,
so
well, we
fast.
saw. Shit.
I was fertile as fuck and I'd never expected that to happen.
Right.
And then it became this whole, like, I still have a hard time grasping the fact that we talked about having a baby,
Right.
not about having a fifth grader and a high schooler and a whole fucking grown up. And I know that that's like, no shit, babies grow into adults. It just wasn't what I hadn't really conceptualized that entire thing.
I don't
at
think
that
a lot
time.
of people do. Like those are conversations that definitely need to be had. I know it sounds like really crazy talking 20 years into the future, but you have to deal with like how you deal with as a unit with a newborn is completely different how you're going to deal with a three-nager and a kindergartner and school issues and possible learning disabilities, possible baby geniuses, possible bullying issues, like
Totally.
all of these things. And then they go to college. And what if they don't want to go to college? What if they're in trade school? How do we handle it if they decide that they want to be a basement dweller? Like, those are things that you kind of have to be on the same page about
Well,
before.
totally. Well, and that's where I'm so confident that the archetypes actually help people bridge that gap because figuring out one, whether you're born to be a parent or a partner, I have a quiz for that, and which of the archetypes is your dominant, also have a quiz for that, helps us understand the world through our partner's lens and helps us really see where we're both like embracing multiple truths here. We can both look at the same scenario and have completely different takes on it and completely different things that flare us up without one being better or worse than the other.
Which I did take the quiz. So,
Yes.
shameless segue into that. She does have a quiz and it is painfully accurate. We will get into what my results were in a second, but can you go over the 5 archetypes and just like a brief what they mean?
Totally. So we have, of course, 5 total. We have the commander who protects against disrespect. We also have the exile who protects belonging. it really fights against rejection. The judge, who fights against injustice, really wants fairness and equity. We have the defender, who fights against criticism, which is just preserving their worth. And we have the sentinel, who protects safety by flaring up whenever it perceives danger. So each one of these is really advocating for one mainly thing that is most important to us to defend. And all of us have all of these archetypes. It's really just about understanding which one is our most dominant. And once we know which one is our most dominant, then we can start viewing the world through that lens and actually naming it. Like this morning when my son was lying to me about some shit and I was super activated, it was, oh, right, this is my judge coming in because this doesn't feel fair. What can I do about it? And instead of it being this like really gross early parenting experience that I had, that was like, I do not like my fucking kid right now. I do not want to be around this kid right now. What am I doing? What does that mean about me? I'm not supposed to feel anger toward my kids. I'm not supposed to feel this level of anger. I'm supposed to be so in love with them and so grateful. It really helps me to understand what my anger is showing me and then be able to do something about it that's within my power.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head with what you just said. Like, we're not supposed to feel anger, like, at all, ever. And we've been taught that like anger is a negative emotion, and if you ever get angry about something, like, you aren't healed, or this, that, and the third. And even if you've done all the healing, if it comes up, it's like, oh shit, like I've still got more work to do, and it can be very discouraging. But you've actually posted a few times on TikTok and Instagram and stuff about how like that is human nature. It's what you do with it after the fact, once you have that initial whatever, that shows whether you're healing or not. Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
For sure. I mean, we have learned that anger and aggression are somehow used interchangeably.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't separated the emotion, which is anger, from the behavior that anger tends to be expressed within. Right? Like when we're happy, we can cry, we can smile. When we're excited, we jump up and down and we squeal. When we are angry, we have only been taught to meet it with aggression. We are survival beings. So when our brain detects a threat, it goes into survival mode and one of our 4 Fs before it's really ever going to consider the more logical, rational part. Right. So because we've seen the destruction that can come from anger, because we can see how gross people can behave using aggression, we've assumed that the underlying issue is anger in and of itself, instead of understanding that the behavior that we've tied to it is the biggest problem.
Right. Exactly. And anger usually is covered by like hurt and sadness 9 times out of 10, correct?
To some level, right? It can be fear. A lot of it is just survival, and our brain's really good at detecting threats.
Right.
So that's really where, when we understand so much more about anger and how it happens neurobiologically, within neurochemically, there's so much less stigma associated with it. But when I got trained in anger management, we're like working out of a workbook, and this is purely behavioral. That's where I got the first little glimpse of the neuroscience behind it. That's where I learned about the amygdala hijack, which is our threat sensing center that then quite literally pulls all the blood supply from our frontal lobe, from our rational brain. And it's called the amygdala hijack. And our amygdala can detect threats within 1/5 of a second. It's faster than the blink of an eye. So when people behave or respond to anger with aggression and they get shamed behaviorally or morally for it, we're missing the gap in between like what we are built to experience. And so few of us are actually taught what's happening within us. So it becomes a me problem instead of my biology problem, which it's an explanation, not an excuse. Right. We're still responsible for 1,000%. Seeing it through and building up that distress tolerance. And more than anything, our brain detected a threat and we're villainizing it for it.
My brain detects threats like at all times. My brain cannot decipher between making a phone call and being chased by a bear. It's the freaking worst.
And it is. And that's where like the anger management model, the traditional view is like, better, do better.
Yeah.
Whereas this view, the anger intelligence that I'm evolving it into, this literacy, this language of anger, would basically argue that we just need to show your body, your mind enough evidence that you can do that safely.
Yeah.
That you can appreciate that your brain is saying, hey, unknown, hey, sirens, this is scary, avoid, attack, whatever that might be, while also still saying, oh, right, thank you for detecting that. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. And I am still safe to see this through. And I'm going to show you.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
It becomes so much more, less of like a victimized mentality or a villainized mentality, and so much more of a message deciphering experience.
Yeah. And full transparency, because I did say earlier that I was going to like reveal my anger archetype. Mine is 1000% the exile.
Yes, ma'am.
Like
mine too.
Yeah. And I'm also a fearful, disorganized avoidant, which comes with a history of having borderline. So the fact that it was exile, like rejection and stuff like that, like that could not have been more accurate. Now, you were saying the exile, or you have said the exile is one of the more common archetypes. What's the least common archetype that you see popping up for people?
Very good question. So yes, the exile is definitely the highest. The second one is judge. The lowest so far is the commander for respect and the defender for criticism and worth.
Do you
So
think?
yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. Do you think that those are low because they kind of mold into the other three?
Maybe. And also, I think the other three can be so much more survival oriented, right? Like we have the exile who's protecting against rejection, but really belonging. Like we are tribal beings. And
Yeah.
so if we don't belong, we quite literally die. We don't survive. So, and
Right.
that's very much wired within our survival mechanisms.
Right.
The other one is the sentinel. So that's safety, right? So there is ultimately a sensing for danger, which makes, of course, complete and utter sense. And then the third is the judge. That's like, if things are unfair, if there isn't justice being held in the world, then not only is my belonging at risk, so is my safety. And so I think a lot of the other ones, the other two rather, that are the lowest, they don't quite register as strongly as the others. And we're about 89 people in. So I'm so excited to actually see how this ends up, on a bigger scale of 500, 1,000, multiple thousand, to see where these results really lie.
Yeah. So speaking of all of that, you do have a podcast called Shift Talking. We briefly brought it up for like a second. What is the podcast ultimately about?
So the entire thing is really about understanding anger through a lens that we haven't had before, shifting the way that we view it. And shift itself is also an acronym for the framework that I suggest we do all of this work within. So the shift is broken down into the S, which is self-awareness, and really just our overall concept of ourselves. The H is healing from the bullshit, not in a therapeutic term, but really just acknowledging what our behaviors are looking to achieve for us, and giving ourselves grace and compassion and the belief that we are capable of change. I is innovation. So we try something new and different that we haven't tried before, not just I won't do this, but what will I actually do instead?
Right.
F is fortitude, that comes as a result of repeated trial and errors, and that my ability to keep going even when I lose faith in myself, building up my self-efficacy until we get to this point of transformation. And when I use the term transformation, I think a lot of us expect like Cinderella rags
the
to,
beast.
it's not. And what I mean by that is that everything has to start small. Ripples become waves over time. If I change, if I modify the way that I handle my upset with my kids when they lie, when they unintentionally hurt me, when they intentionally hurt me, whatever this might be, and I go from a 0 to 10 and to a 0 to 7, there is a really massive part of me that has transformed. even if I go from a 0 to 10 to a 0 to 9.8, there is some level of transformation within me that has been built, and it has to be acknowledged. And so we will constantly filter, typically within the S, the H, the I, maybe the F, multiple times over before we ultimately hit the T.
Right.
But it's all part of this framework.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And like you were saying, like the transformation, if it is a 9.8 instead of a 10, there's still that self-awareness, like it's better, but it could be, it still needs some work. So that kind of
Totally.
circles back to the start of it.
Yes, exactly. And that's where, let's say, like this morning, my son was not honest with me. He quite
Right.
literally told me that he was testing my love for him. Not my greatest. I know, it's a whole thing. So
Kids
there
are
is
just
this
wild, man.
dude, I'm telling you. So there was this part that like there were so many different parts of me that were flared up in that moment. A lot of it was the judge, some of it was the commander who was feeling disrespected, right? And there was that part that my self-awareness says, okay, this makes sense. My judge is coming in because it does feel like there's an injustice here. There is a level of brutal transparency and honesty that I give him, and I'm not getting back. There's also this part of me feeling deeply disrespected. So if I can lead with self-awareness around that to say, these are the archetypes that are coming through for me, and here's what they're protecting, here's what they're fighting against, I move into the H of where does that come from for me? What makes that important for me? What part of the way that I reacted was helpful? What part wasn't helpful?
Mm-hmm.
How can I hold grace and compassion for myself, even though I didn't handle it as well as I would have liked to this morning, and still believe in my ability to behave differently in the future?
Yeah.
Right. If I get so stuck on either just the self-awareness, which is what we're doing this information age of everyone knowing all of their shit, but not actually doing anything about it. And then getting into the breaking it down a bit more within the H that can build up so much regret and guilt. I used to get stuck right there for a really long time. That like
Right.
mom shouldn't behave this way. I'm harming my kid. How am I fucking up my kid because I got loud with him or whatever that might be?
Yeah.
If I can accept multiple truths and allow for all of them to exist and all of them be accurate, even if they seemingly contradict, then I can say, okay, here's what I did well. Here's what that part of me was trying to protect. That makes sense. Here's what I could like, what can I possibly do differently next time?
Yeah.
That's where the innovation comes in, where it's not just don't yell at him.
Right.
It is, okay, next time this flares up with me, next time my son is dishonest with me or puts me through a love test, I can then buy myself a little bit of time to try something different.
Yeah. I can't with that. Like, I swear to God, kids, they're just born to put us through the ringer.
It has been the ultimate test for me, a repeated test of my ability to rise. And in so many ways, for so long, I drowned and I blamed the people who didn't warn me. And I blamed my husband for drowning alongside me. And I blamed my kids for having certain temperaments. And more than anything, after everything that my husband and I have been through and the crisis that we went through 5 years ago, should we choose to unpack that here, if there's anything I learned, it's that this is meant to. That like as much as I have been wounded by parenting, I have also been transformed. I've also been challenged in ways, and I really love the person that I've become because parenting nearly destroyed me.
Yeah.
And I can see how quickly and how easily I could have stayed within those depths too.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we all saw our parents kind of stay in those depths more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think breaking the wheel and breaking the generational curses is making it harder to parent because we're reparenting ourselves along with parenting our kids. And that is a whole, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've watched my nephew and he's done something and I'm like, I go to like flip out and then I'm like, nope, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because he's, 2, 3, and like this is just where he's at. You got to meet him where he's at. It's
Yes.
really freaking hard.
And it's also the day in, day out of it. And then sometimes our dynamic as parents can make it so much harder. If
Yeah.
we don't know how to communicate well, if we don't know how to transition from being this couple who thought they knew what they were doing and thought they knew what kind of parent they would be, and stay so rigid once they do become parents and not stay flexible to like, I reserve the right to change my mind.
Yep.
There is so much more hardship and conflict and aggression and all sorts of really not cute things that can come through that makes parenting so much harder and digs us in deeper to like the guilt, shame, doom loop.
Well, not to like add to it, but in your specific situation, your kids were young when you and your husband went through your crises, if you want to kind of unpack that as much as you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful they were so young, because while we know that attachment styles tend to be pretty much ingrained, like our nervous system is wired by the time we're 5 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of like their younger years were really chaotic. There's a big part of me that's really grateful that they likely won't have a conscious memory of it, but
That's a
it
big
is my
one.
work and my responsibility to make sure that their wiring catches up to that
Yeah.
part. So yeah, I mean, my husband and I were always drinkers. It was
Mm-hmm.
very much part of our personality. He's lifetime food and beverage. I was the shot and a beer girl. Grew up in Vegas, raised in Vegas. So like that
Yeah, that'll
definitely
do it.
contributed. That definitely made it easier. So there was a lot of that we kind of always, it always made sense. Like hard day, glass of wine. Hard week, go to the bar and have a shot. Hard, like whatever evening, let's just stay in and have some beers by myself, like whatever that looks like. And because I didn't understand, and my husband certainly didn't understand how much we were using alcohol as a coping
Mm-hmm.
mechanism to numb in order to kind of like get through hard things, we became parents and then learned that those skills just aren't there for us. We
Right.
were tested in ways that we hadn't been before. And so COVID hit, we had a COVID baby. And during that time, I had shared with my husband that I thought our drinking was not helping and
Mm-hmm.
that I suggested that we stop. He kept going. I didn't know, because I also was postpartum and really sensitive to smell. And so I was constantly asking him to mouthwash because smell is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a match made in heaven, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
slip a couple sips of bourbon, go mouthwash, and your wife is super happy, you know? So ultimately things came to a head. It became very glaringly obvious what was happening and how problematic it was. And it was one day in particular where we had been fighting about his drinking so much. And I was pregnant with my youngest, and my eldest was down for a nap, or so I thought. And he and I were fighting. I had accused him of drinking, not an accusation. I had a fact that I was bringing to him that
Yeah.
he was contesting. And we got into a really loud argument in the hallway. And it was the first time my husband had ever said, fuck you to me, like screamed it at me, which like didn't happen. It's not the way that he ever spoke to me or we
Yeah.
spoke to each other. And immediately I hear my son crying from behind me in the hallway. And I looked back at his little body. He was 3 at the time, and he was just sobbing. And it was in that moment that I think I had that click of like, this is a very pivotal time. Like, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have a choice here of what you do about this and how you handle it. Simultaneously, I look back at my husband, and he looks between myself and our child, and he just books it, just bails.
Yeah.
And while I had chased my husband down many a streets and many environments, this was the first time that I chased him down. And instead of asking him to calm down and come inside and let's make this work, I chased him down our driveway and looked him dead in the eye and said, fuck you too. And if you ever speak to me that way again, you're in the fucking gutter. And I walked right back in the house. And it was the first time I had actually ever threatened him in a way that made sense, right? Like I had made empty threats our whole relationship. Dude knew I wasn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
And this time was the first time that it went from, I will leave you, but please don't make me. And like, I really don't have any intention to, I will leave you and you fucking try me. And it became a totally different version of me that realized that I needed to like woman the fuck up for this child and for the one that was being built within me. And so little by little, he tried sobriety, but just not drinking, which is just dry drunking. So he's not drinking, but he's also not doing the work to understand what was driving the behavior.
Yeah.
What was the underlying cause? Similar to anger and aggression, I very much, of course, learned that drinking was the behavior, but depression, trauma, all of these things was the actual underlying cause. And we ultimately, he had dry drunked, relapsed twice. And during his last relapse, it had triggered a depressive episode. And he was really just fueled by a lot of shame and guilt that he ultimately made the decision to take his life. And I walked in. And that became what we now lovingly refer to as our crisis.
I would say that's definitely a crisis.
100. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
How are you able to work through those emotions, especially after walking in and seeing, you know, whatever it was that you saw, that we're not going to go into detail here, but seeing whatever it was that you saw and still wanting to be there for him, but staying strong in the whole, you need to figure this out or this is not going to work?
Yeah. So that was a funky kind of experience because one, my background in mental health tells me he needs to be hospitalized and he needs intervention, right? It was incredibly courageous of him to tell me and to share with me what was about to happen. And so I have a tendency to go fully into like numb mode and get shit done when I go through traumas and crises.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I did. He himself said when I walked in, he dropped to the ground in front of our sons, and said, "Do not leave me alone. Do not trust me. I'm about to kill myself." And so that, of course, in and of itself was shocking. And I immediately went, okay. And thankfully, my mom had like walked in the door with me. And so I looked at her and was like, I need you to be with the kids. And I started calling hospitals and making sure that I could get him in somewhere that was solid and not just a pill mill, and somewhere where they would just numb him out and then release him in the wild. So I thankfully found a really fantastic place in Las Vegas where we were living. And he spent 3 days there and he sobered up and he started working in groups. He got a formal diagnosis that he hadn't had before. That makes so much sense. And he started doing the work. So while I was relieved that it was being addressed, there was still a really big part of me that had just my past wounding and past experiences with alcoholism and addiction in my family and in my family line and suicide in my family line, that I very much like, I didn't just numb out, I broke completely down. My family flew in from where they were living. We were fully cradled by our family and our loved ones who took my kids for those 3 days and let me just numb out and cry in a closet for a lot of that time because I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to hold all of it. And so he got released actually on our eldest son's 4th birthday. And that's where we formally chose to separate. That it was like, we just need this time. You'll move into the downstairs room. Here's how we will, effectively co-parent within the home.
Yeah.
I had felt like it felt like such a betrayal. And even though he was going to kill himself, there was still all of this betrayal that I had felt about not knowing. And I felt so stupid for not knowing and not seeing the signs and not, and also grieving another version of me out there in the multiverse or whatever it is that like lost her husband that day, and how close we were to having my sons lives and their adult identities being defined by how they lost their father and
Yeah.
questioning their worth and their value based on how they lost their father. And so it was so many of these things kind of all wrapped up into one. And it was on his 3-month sobriety day. He came home and he gifted me his chip. And I was not proud. I was not anything. I was pissed. Like,
Right.
it's almost like the better he got, the worse I got and the more angry I got. And while my work had been anger before, that was really the time that I learned, like, my anger is bringing up a lot of things in me that I'm noticing cannot stay the same again.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Where it was around then that I saw that he was improving and I was still expecting him to fail somehow. And I
Yeah.
kept drinking here and there because I didn't know how to hold it. And it became this like really funky identity crisis within me of like, this is a problem. I'm angry as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to understand what this anger is serving for me. How can I really embrace this and use this as a catalyst for change in my life and advocacy for myself and my boys and for my husband?
Right.
That it really became more of like my compass as we moved through.
Yeah. I think what you're feeling, what you were feeling at the time is very, I don't want to say normal, but it's that your guards up, the walls up of like, okay, we're, you know, I'm just, wait, when is the other shoe going to fall?
Totally.
And the longer it goes, it's like, I just need the other shoe to fall so that I can just move on or get on with my life or whatever, because I didn't plan on what it looks like if you don't fail.
Right. And that's exactly it. That my therapist used that exact language with me. She said, "You're so convinced that the other shoe is going to drop that you're sitting there spending all of your time staring at it
Yeah.
instead of putting your work into what it'll be like when and if it does fall and what if it doesn't." So a lot of my work had to do with advocacy and of course that boundary setting within me, where when my husband and I chose to not only save our marriage but rewrite it entirely, the
Yeah.
basic foundation that it was built upon was that I will raise my children with an alcoholic all day every day,
Mm-hmm.
and I will not raise them with an active alcoholic. I will not expose them to someone
Yes.
active in their disease. And that became with the very first change that my anger allowed for me to do and feel really good about doing, and knowing that I wasn't punishing or running away or numbing or just leading with aggression. And so
Yeah.
that became like that very, very first thing. And then we have to change this narrative. What happens if he does ultimately die by suicide a year from now, a day from now?
Mm-hmm.
How will I navigate that? How will I cope? How will I not blame myself? He's going into a program, he's working these steps. And what about when he relapses eventually? How will I make it not my fault? How will I
Mm-hmm.
support him and hold him accountable without making him my project that I just have to keep clean?
Yeah.
And there was so much of that now when we look back in April will be his 5-year sobriety birthday. And it's this that now it's like, fast forward 5 years, here we are.
Right.
And it's like, holy shit, like this has been incredibly challenging, and none of
Yeah.
this came really smoothly or easily. And the time would have passed anyway. And so we did these small shifts. Like, the whole shift framework was inspired by my husband,
Yeah.
because he works in food and beverage, and he had gotten this promotion that was really fantastic. And I bought him this leather bound Etsy journal, and
No.
I inscribed Shift Hero on it because of him like working shifts and
Mm-hmm.
being heroic in all of our minds. And I wrote him this little thing inside about what shift means and how he embodies what a transitional character is and all of this. And he became very much my muse for what this work looks like and how to do it really well, effectively over time.
Um, how is he doing now?
Beautifully. He's doing
I
beautifully.
love that.
He's found a a placement within sobriety that makes sense for him.
Mhm.
He's now anger management certified. He has done a lot of his own work to address his upbringing and his own wounding, and really remedying and a lot of healing in who he is and his identity, rewriting the internal narrative that he had that he realized was just placed there by people who
Mhm.
did not care for him very much. And we now, outside of being really good parents, because I know that we are right now,
Mhm.
our marriage, born to be a partner, our marriage is the thing in my life that I am the most proud of.
Yeah, you
And
guys have
he
been
is,
through it.
yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's been truly this thing that destroyed us and became the foundation for us to rebuild on top of.
Can you kind of walk me through how you were one, have you stopped staring at the shoe?
Uh-huh.
So, how
I
did you
have.
go
Yeah.
from that how did you go from that to where you can be fully, like, emotionally present in your marriage now? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that, especially with big, big issues like that in relationships. Like, how does a partner stop staring at the shoe and actually get back into it?
Yeah. I mean, so much more of it had to do with trusting myself and the future version of
Mm,
myself to know what to do when it does drop.
yeah.
And that was this, anxiously attached, people pleasing, passive human who spent my entire life focusing on other people and why they are the way that they are, and making sure that I could like mend and mold and like chisel away at myself in order to be what they needed. That work for me was trusting myself, honoring
Yeah.
myself, trusting my own intuition, listening to what anger is trying to tell me. And that's still my default, right? Like yesterday, my husband and I had voiced a complaint to him, and he pulled back and he quite literally expressed it to me that he's just like kind of processing and playing the tape back of the complaint that I made and where that may have come from and how he contributed to it, and all of this. And he was really just absorbing what had happened. But what I saw was a full pullback. So my catastrophizing brain was like, oh my God, what does this
Right.
mean? How is he going to cope? Is this the beginning of a relapse? Is he mad at me? Are we never going to be okay? Is he going to get like dark and angry when the kids get home? And, like, will he lose his ability to hold
Yeah.
distress? And it became this like spiraling thing that happened in my brain. And it's not so much that I don't know that I will ever extinct that. There is a
Right.
part of me that's really grateful for it because it's telling me, like, hey, this rhymes. This is
Mhm.
familiar. Mind your P's and Q's. While
Right.
also being one of those things that I could notice and say, hold on though. Like realistically, let's gain some perspective. Here's where we at. Here's where we're at. He heard this. He's doing the healthy thing, which is to pull back and consider himself, like be introspective and gain insights on himself. And this is part of it. This is why you made the complaint, was that something needed to change.
Yeah.
So he's doing the work. I trust him. He trusts me. There are so many ways that when and if we see each other struggling in ways that, can't read the label from inside the jar, that we can see in each other and we can't quite see in ourselves, we do
Right.
have a pretty solid system of how we do that. And so it was really just this knee jerk instinctive reaction for me to have of like staring at the shoe and predetermining how it would fall and what sound it would make,
Yeah.
versus getting into this idea of, okay, well, we are really solid in this, and I am responsible for me. All of the work that I do is so very much rooted in the concept of radical self responsibility. And that has to be mine. Whatever he chooses to do is still his choice. I can contribute, maybe I can have influence, but no matter what, his sobriety is his. And it's my job to facilitate that and hold mirrors to him that show him blind spots without taking accountability or responsibility over how those blind spots manifest in his own existence.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is not making what's going on with him your personal responsibility. I think a lot of us just do that because we're natural caregivers or people pleasers in one way or another, and we take that on when it was never our shit to take on because we are not responsible for those people. We can care about them, but we're not responsible.
Mm-hmm. Oh, entirely. It's where I can see so clearly for years that his drinking was gnarly.
Mm-hmm.
And one, I didn't tell a soul, and two, I unintentionally enabled it for a really long time, thinking I was helping. And it is these kinds of like mind fucks that we put ourselves through, and thinking that if I can just hold it for him, if I
Mm-hmm.
can fix it for him out here, then we can both be okay.
Yeah.
And that's where so much of it is, that I refer to anger as our compass, because without that, without these little pangs that we get in our chest, we won't
Mm-hmm.
really know where to place that effort and that energy. And now each time I get a pang, instead of feeling gross about experiencing it all, which still happens, but more often than not, when I get that pang, I'm like, oof, okay, like how can I lead with curiosity about this? Like what is coming up for me when I get that pang of fear for him, for his well-being, for his safety? It is that like, oh, right, there is this operating system working in the background that I haven't had to click on in a while. And now it's showing me that it's a still running tab.
Yeah. Just to, I hate saying shift gears, but to shift gears a little bit.
Yep.
You host every Thursday. You host a live, just TED Talk webinar kind of deal, to bring people in to talk about shifting their anger and stuff like that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this all, actually, I just realized I never answered your question about how I got into podcasting. And that kind of
I'm realizing that too.
This is one, this is really passionate for me. Two, this is unmedicated ADHD. I will follow every squirrel down every branch as well. So like,
Yeah.
we'll rein it in eventually. We'll get to the top of the tree. So I got into podcasting because my clients in sessions, full transparency, said, I wish I could record you and play it for my husband or my friends and family.
Yeah.
And like more people need to hear this. And if it comes from me, it's funky. So I had not had the plan to start a podcast at all. It was a series of clients within a very short period of time who all asked me to start a podcast directly, or if I could please record these things. So like that's where Shift Talking came from. And it's also just cheeky as fuck. I love the name.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
And then the Shift Live Labs came as a result of me really noticing that there were so many of my clients that I was working with one-to-one, and who would learn so much from each other in ways that I just can't be that for them, nor should I be. And wanting them to create more community. Because when we are doing this work and we are shifting and we are being these transitional characters, we get a lot of pushback from the people that love us the most, because we are now changing the status quo, and that's uncomfortable. Humans are pattern recognition machines. And if I am changing, even if it's for the better, the people around me are going to be like, what the fuck is that? Stay exactly the same. Where are you going? Why are you changing? And so I wanted to create a space where all of us could meet once per week, clinically most effective for behavior change and all of that, and also consistent for those of us who can be consistently inconsistent with the work. And we can all come together live and just chat. So it is kind of like webinar style. It is learning while also having time for skills based work to be done. We open every session with a round of breath work to regulate before we do it, because I'm not just trying to throw and fire hose information at people. We have to bridge the gap between knowing better and doing better. And I want us to have a place every Thursday for us to come in and start breaking the pattern of just maintaining the status quo and giving them opportunities. All of us, I need it just as much as anyone else does. All of us having this time to consciously reset, ground, get that breath work, regulate our nervous system for even the shortest of period, and be able to learn and evolve and shift all together.
Yeah. with you going through, and I think it's absolutely incredible. I realize I switched very quickly. So in full transparency, I just want to like circle back to everything you and your husband have gone through. I think it's absolutely incredible that you guys managed to stay together through all of that. And I know you were fully prepared to leave and do what was best for not only you, but your kids. But I got to really hand it to him because that is a lot of work to go from rock bottom.
Yeah.
And do the apology tour and the shame, cone of shame and, all of that. So I think it's just absolutely incredible that you guys were able, because it's so rare that couples can go through hell and see the other side of it and it not continue to be a toxic shit pile. Because
Yeah.
we all see the couple on Facebook that we've been through hell and back, and it's like, yeah, you should have broken up like 6 breakups ago. So seeing you guys go from point A to now is just so incredible, and I give you guys such credit because I know that was not easy. I know you talk about it like you do talk about it, but I know it was not easy to go through that, and it's still not easy to go through that. And I'm sure that there's the flashbacks, and when your kids are older they're going to ask the questions, and there's a lot that you have to constantly mentally prepare yourself for. But it's just incredible how far you guys have come.
Thank you for that. And it is something that I sometimes think, like, because now we're in such a good solid space that I sometimes glaze over it, or I kind of downplay it. But it was incredibly challenging, and it was one of those things that we easily could have separated. And I think in that moment, in many of those moments, I really knew that I was capable of different too. And I adore him. Like, he is, if I had no friends in the world, and even though I do, like, he's still the person I want to spend almost all of my time with. We talk about being like our soul's friend. Like, we were good friends for years before we got together. And I genuinely enjoy this man. And I also think that that's one of the biggest things, is that if we don't marry for the right reasons for us, truly fundamentally and genuinely like your partner, we never would have worked. But we both believed in our ability to be different and be able to navigate our way through, while also being very open to the fact that, like, maybe we won't be able to make this work, and that's okay. And so there was a lot of that going on. But thank you for that. It's super nice to hear.
I'm just being completely honest, because it's you see all these power couples and you just never know what they're actually going through, and the trials and tribulations and those seasons of just absolute shit. And I mean, it doesn't have to be that as like deep as it was for you and your husband, but still, you never know what couples are going through when they're just like, posting their stuff on Instagram and not posting the crap. But but on a brighter note, you have a sponsorship. Congratulations. I literally was squealing, kicking my feet when I saw that. I was like, that is so cute. So who is your sponsorship with? And just like a quick little plug on who they are.
Yes. So my sponsor for Shift Talking is Brainwave. They do nootropic mushroom gummies and tinctures, and they are fantastic. It's all USA, led on a single regenerative farm. So, like, everything is just done with so much care and precision. There's no added fillers or gluten or artificial flavors, sweeteners, like any of that. And last year, I discontinued multiple medications for multiple diagnoses, including PMDD, which is a depressive disorder, and
it's so
ADHD.
Fun, isn't it?
Oh, it's great.
It's so much
fucking
fun.
atrocious. My God. And I discontinued them, but I didn't have a plan for afterward. Cute. And I felt really good when I slowly weaned off of all of them, that I thought it would continue, and it just didn't. And so I did a bunch of research into different companies and I knew I wanted mushrooms, non-psychedelic, although I was kind of open to it too. But I knew that I wanted mushrooms in that way. And then I found Brainwave, and I reached out to them and was like, hey, I want to try your product. I don't want to invest in it. Can you just send me some? And they said yes. Right. And I was like, ooh, shot my shot, and it worked. Thank you. And so Chris, the founder, he sent me some, no questions asked. And I tried it and really loved it. And then
Yeah.
reached back out recently and was like, hey, I really love your products. Can we talk a partnership? And he said yes. And so now
I love
he's
that.
the sponsor of Shift Talking, and we've put together a little bit more of a partnership where I will be a little bit more of the face of Brainwave and really advocate for them and become more of an ambassador for their brand. And it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it was like an immediate follow for me because I also feel like mushrooms do more than prescription drugs. I'm forever like I was like the cottage witch in like deep in the forest, like in a past life.
Brave. Yeah.
So yeah, I love those more like all natural, like especially if they don't have fillers, stuff like that. So I was like really excited to like look into it. I'm definitely going to be trying some because again, raging ADHD over here. So I'm like anything
Gnarly.
else, so I was so excited so congratulations on that one.
Thank you.
But also, how can people, if somebody is listening and really just wants to start getting a hold of their anger, how do they, for lack of, whatever, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. Any of my socials across YouTube, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, all of that is a steady space. So I named my practice what it is. I want you to come in, find some balance, and go back out into the world. We're oil changes, not chronic therapeutic model shit. So that's a
Yeah.
steady space. That's my website domain, all of it. On Spotify, Apple, you can find my podcast either just under my name or Shift Talking. And then through Brainwave's side, if anyone is open to it and interested, you can use the code Davina30 for that 30% off your first order.
I will 1000% be using that. Also,
Yay.
how can people get into the weekly, which I believe it's 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Thursday?
It's 11 a.m. every Thursday Pacific. We do a 14-day free trial because I know it's like funky for people to come into a group. I would have never joined a group in a past life. The group that I met you in was my first ever group. So like there's already that I'm so introverted and so like social anxiety ridden that
it's like, oh
I
God.
wouldn't want it. So I want people to come in like zero concerns, zero, barriers to entry.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we do a 14-day free trial and then it's $27 per month after that. So you can find that through my website, through Shift Live Lab, or on any of my socials. It's tagged in my links.
Yeah, you're constantly posting about it anyways, which is how I found it in the first place because I was doing a mini stock before this episode to make sure that I had all my ducks in a row.
Yes,
but
please. I'm working on that.
Yeah, we're forever working on it, I swear to God.
Yeah.
Davina, thank you so much for being so open. All of the things, and I didn't say it before, but anytime severe mental health issues are brought up on this podcast, if you are in crisis, I know for the US and also Canada, please dial 988. You belong here. You need to be here. You matter. Please dial 988 if you are ever in crisis. It is an incredible resource. And I feel like more people need to use it, especially in this day and age with everything going on. Davina, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And amen to that.
Yeah. All right, guys, we will catch you again next week. And as always, stay hot, stay messy.